Welcome back. This is your host, Siris King. And on this YouTube episode, I'm going to continue my Gnosticism series. And we're going to talk about Demiurge and Yaldabaoth, whichever name you prefer to call that force. It's interesting because this would be out of all the different Gnostic videos I've done so far. Like I haven't done Sophia yet. I'm gonna do Sophia next probably. If I don't do, I might do one more before Sophia. But Sophia's even gonna come next or second or like 2 videos down, right? But the merge is a concept that where I basically have, when I've been doing this Gnostic series, I've been talking about how there's different strands of Gnosticism and they were all for the most part unified when you get to the top. But it's like different paths. I shouldn't say not totally different, but slightly different paths to get to the same goal. So when you go up the ladder, eventually we all unify, right? No topic in Gnosticism kind of expresses that more than Demiurge. Because if I go by what the European-centric Gnostics say, right, you even get different interpretations there too. But you get either he is an immature being, right, or an evil being. They all, for the most part, agree that he's linked to the lowest eon, Sophia, right? She created him in ignorance, or she created him without her male counterpart, or she created him without consent from the monad or God or the original singularity, right? They all agree on that. Now, some might say he's immature. Some might say straight evil, right? But without question, he represents a force that at times can make one's life in the physical harder because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. That's how some people describe us, right? So from the European concept versus the indigenous or African concept, it's going to be slightly different because sometimes you would have it where some people would even classify him with Samuel. Some people even classify him with what people call the devil, right? And that concept doesn't exist the same way in Africa, right? So when you look at it from the European concept, understand this: their interpretation came much later on. Their interpretation came when they were observing certain people in different parts of Africa, which is North Africa, East Africa. They were observing how our priests were invoking certain energies, or even sometimes when even the Greeks would come to Egyptian schools and learn, right? It could be from either one. And the concept of the merge, the concept of really, I would even classify it as disorder or decay or chaos. They don't handle that concept well. It's nothing to do with racism. This has nothing to do with any Hotep shit, right? This is just more a shamanistic principle where in indigenous societies we understand. Like if you go even to the Aztecs and Mayans, they have like 10 or 12 or 13 different levels in the underworld. From when you come from our interpretation, there's no such thing as good and evil. It's balance and imbalance. And so when I say this is not to say that if you follow the European concept of the merge, it's going to be detrimental. No, because it is a force that when you, at the beginning stages, meaning we're fallen beings, right? We're not as divine. Like, so, good example. What does that mean when we're fallen beings? You can have slightly different arguments. A straight Christian would say original sin. Adam and Eve ate the fruit. They got kicked out of the garden. If you want to go from even certain Gnostic points of view, Sophia, even Demiurge to some extent, is more responsible for this realm, right? And so Demiurge's realm, right? It's sort of like it's the lowest realm. It's the lowest realm away from God, right? So because of that, you're gonna have more order, more disorder. You're gonna have more chaos. You're gonna have more pain. You're gonna have more decay. You're gonna have more death, right? And you're gonna have more you're gonna have to work harder to see the divine light. So in Gnosticism, you try to activate the flame again. Like the flame is everywhere, from every human. Even animals have the flame on a different level. Even inanimate objects have the flame, even though for them it's dormant, right? But it exists everywhere. But it has to be turned on, no matter who. So the difference will be if you were in I guess the original heavens, that light, that flame will be on. When you're down here, it has to be turned on. So when you have to be turned on, no one down here is going to make it easy. That's the difference. So that's why if you have it where you coming from the European concept when it comes to the Demiurge, I wouldn't necessarily say it's detrimental to your spiritual growth. I mean, it's somewhat accurate. It's just that it doesn't, it's a slightly immature take because, like I said, disorder, chaos, that energy, when they came and they observed that essence in Africa, and to some extent, certain parts of the Middle East, like Yemen, they didn't handle that right. That concept they couldn't understand it. So that's why if you look at most African and traditional religions, they don't have a Satan. That's the difference. If you look at most African traditions, not only do they not have a Satan, they don't have an antagonistic relationship between the spirit world and the material world. Not as much. Yes, Africa is a big continent. There's shit. It's an unlimited amount of ATRs, but when you go in, I mean, it used to be a limited amount of ATRs. A lot of them have been wiped out, but for the most part, even if you look at like certain ATRs that talk about the afterlife and it's in heaven, they still don't have an antagonistic relationship with the material. So it's going to be slightly different from, and I'm more representing, look at the channel, look at the videos I've done. I'm more representing the ATR mindset when it comes to this, right? In the sense that Demiurge is more a force that you could describe as evil, you could describe as negative, but it's a force that's needed to toughen us. It's a force that's needed to help us to turn on the flame. So it's going to resist. It's going to make our life hard. Yes, no question. In fact, out of 10 spiritual seekers, you're lucky if 1 out of 10 gets it. I always say the proper number is more like probably 5 out of 100, right? But if you're doing 1 to 10, yeah. You're lucky if you get 1 out of 10. That's why, because what does the merge do? What is the energy, what it represents does? It returns everything back to its original state, right? So let's say you're a spiritual seeker. You started at 22. By 40, you reach enlightenment. Boom! Oh shit! You could control your thoughts. You're aware of the astral plane. Shit, maybe you could even, I'm not trying to gas you up. Maybe you could even levitate a piece of paper. I'm just saying, whatever. Like, you could do some shit, right? The problem comes in is that the merge or that force of decay or disorder will still see you the way you were born. So meaning, if you were born in original sin, as what the Christians say, if you were born in a fallen state, it's going to resist. This is why the Gnostics, which they decoded correctly, have always noted the difference between Christ and other Messiah, I don't want to say other Messiahs, other prophets, in the sense that the other prophets were born in sin. So even though they transform and they elevate themselves, that force will still see them as that original, let's say a human. So what happens is it's gonna try to come back and almost like take away your gifts, take away your ability, like basically make your life hard, right? It's gonna be that force that you were like a monk and you fucking in a monastery and you meditate and do shit every day, right? And you have 2 good weeks, and that 3rd week is like, I don't want to do shit, right? Or maybe things happen to you in your everyday life that had nothing to do with spirituality, then you start doubting spirituality, or you start saying, I just don't have the motivation to do it. That's that force. It's basically going to resist you at all times. But the reason why people find it evil or difficult, because they're not magicians, because they're not full active, like they haven't went through the steps of yoga that they're supposed to. Meaning, if you understand that you're going to get resistance, right? The Egyptians used to have a saying that if you beat Apophis or Apep on Monday, Tuesday's new day. Basically means Apophis or Apep is going to come back every single day, right? Which is that? It's kind of the concept of Apophis is very similar, right? It's going to come back every single day. So, or because you could have 10 straight years, the 11th year he gets you. That's the whole concept of being a monk or born in a monastery and making that stuff your everyday life. You know it's going to keep happening. So when you keep resisting it, you get stronger. You turn the light on. The light inside you gets more stable. The light inside of you starts to encompass your whole body. Eventually, Your body itself changes because you remember your subconscious mind is the thing that makes the cells in your body. So eventually, your body, if you do that for 10, 15 years, your body will be different. That's why they say in yoga, the same body you had before you did yoga is not the same body you have after years of doing yoga. So the difference is, the reason why a lot of people don't do well with Demiurge is because they don't have a spiritual routine. They actually think reading a book. Like I see some people to just, they'll give me all books all day. I'm like, what's your routine? What's your spiritual routine? Motherfucker, like my routine is 2 hours minimum, sometimes 3 hours a day. 1 day of rest. What is your routine? What is your spiritual routine? If you're just telling me you reading books, yeah, you might beat them 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. He can get you eventually. That's how it goes. And so this is why to the African, that force, we wouldn't classify that as a devil. We definitely wouldn't classify it as a evil being. Yes. Immature? I would say yeah, in the sense that I don't even know if you would say immature. You would say yes. It's more susceptible to imbalance, right? So when we say there's no good and bad, it's imbalance and imbalance. Balance and imbalance. The higher aeons above Sophia and those forces, there's no imbalance in them, right? They're more in a perfect state. That's the state that we're trying to get. But the difference is, and this is how some Gnostics talk about the solar body, especially proactive Gnostics, because like I've said, you old Gnosticism, you begin, you read, you study. Probably eventually, you should get into Kabbalah or Christian Kabbalah. Which one? Whatever. Jewish Kabbalah or Christian Kabbalah or Hermetic Kabbalah. Sometimes a Kabbalah. Tree of Life, all that other stuff, and then get in a spiritual routine. That's the way it's supposed to go. If you just stay in the studying state, yeah, you're not going to be able to, yes, that force will get you. And yes, that force, you are going to classify it as evil. Remember, in some African traditional religions, they would have it where there's some people who would invoke, like there's certain archetypal figures that you could kind of associate, like I said, Egypt. Some people would have, some people would say Set, but more Apophis, more Apep with that. In other African traditional religions, yeah, we'll have our own forces like Isu, right? As the Brazilians have it, they'll have their own version of that you could invoke. Sometimes invoke to suck up all the disorder and put it outside and put it back in the ground, because the ground is what holds that. That's what they say is coming from the underworld, right? So we would have it completely different than how the European construct of it is. But I know this is a Gnostic video, so I did want to make sure and explain people, because when you look this up, the European construct is going to be concept is going to be the more popular version. It's going to be the bigger because it's the one that's written, right? So written, yes, Sophia, the lowest eon, was the eon where human beings are most connected to. Don't ever get it twisted. So Christ came and saved us. But the one that, you might make the argument we're connected to both, but Sophia is extremely important. She makes a being by herself, right? Or without the consent of God, the monad, or without her male counterpart. It differs, right? This being is imperfect. She tries to hide it. She puts him in a throne and surrounds him in a cloud and throws him in the underworld. He resisted. He's rebellious. He's not even aware, according to the Europeans, of the hierarchies of the heavens. And he comes and rules this world. And because this world is sort of like really from Sophia, but a mixture of him, everything you see in the world has divinity. The difference is, it's trapped. So when the human being awakens the inner gnosis or the inner fire within themselves, they then help the animals. The plants a system, in this journey, plants. I'm going to say it again. Plants. Whether it's plants in your fucking magic, whether it's plants in your herbal elixirs, tinctures, whether it's plants as medicine, whether it's plants when you're eating, whether if you one of these breatharian spooky motherfuckers, and how you get to that level, you got to emulate plants. Plants, right? So the human being awakens the Gnostic or that inner fire, looks around them or her, right? Because Gnostics ain't Christians. We definitely respect the divine feminine. She or he looks around, frees the animals, frees other humans. In the inanimate objects, some of the more skilled Gnostics who become alchemists even free that divinity in inanimate objects. That's why they say in alchemy, the things closest to gods are metal and minerals than plants. And that's how alchemy ties into Gnosticism. So Demiurge, what you call Demiurge, becomes a necessary evil. It becomes the evil. It becomes the force that everything. The differences in the higher realms, they know what they are. They can see it. They can experience it. They can remember it. For us, we're frozen. And if you believe in Gnostics, the human being made in God's image and likeness can come in and free her or himself, and then free everybody else. When you get to that stage, the merge becomes a necessary evil. Yes, it doesn't become something that you love, but it becomes something that hardens you, that makes you tougher. Because in the end of the day, the angels weren't created for this realm. So they're messengers. They come, they leave, right? Some people may not believe in angels. So you want to say they're just mental beings. They come in the mental, they inspire you as like a vibration, and they leave, right? This is our realm. So either way, because that's what Gnosticism is, very versatile. You don't want to believe in angels, you don't have to. Just look at them as mental impressions that inspire. This is not their realm. They're just a mental impression if that's what you want to believe. Okay, we have to take control of this realm. The Gnosis does that. Now the difference will be between Gnosticism, that's more European centered, they have a very up and down relationship with matter. When an African and indigenous version of Gnosticism, we don't really have an up and down relationship with matter. Land spirit stuff is very important. The trees are very important. We don't really have an up and down relationship with matter. And as even science says, energy is matter anyway. So when you get into the when people ask, why do we get different interpretations of Demiurge? Understand the mindset of when we decoded the Demiurge, right? If you're not a magician, if you're not a yogi, if you're not an alchemist, meaning if you're not somebody that's proactive in your spirituality, you could be studying for years, you could be trying to do your shit, right? And then you just don't get the motivation, or shit just starts going fucked up, or you try to talk to people about the spirit and they don't want to hear it, because Demiurge used the essence of Sophia to create this realm, and it appears to be disconnected from the monad or the original singularity or God. And it's not really disconnected, just compared to all of the realms of this, right? So that person who's not a proactive occultist, who's not an alchemist, who's not a magician, who's not a yogi, who's not a shaman, right? Who's not even coming from an ATR or an indigenous, whether it's Australian, whether it's Native American, whether it's Eskimo, we're not coming from that mindset. Demiurge is evil. When you're coming from the mindsets I just described, it's balance versus imbalance, and things that Demiurge creates or it has association with, you're gonna have more imbalance. So until you balance yourself, and then that you replicate that in your environment, you're gonna have an up and down relationship with Demiurge. Hence, the European version of Gnosticism that says he's immature, and me, I prefer that than evil. But yes, if you're not proactive, it's going to be something that's going to appear to interfere with your spiritual work. No question. So many people are going to have, look, you can read up on Demiurge, right? And you can get the story. Sophia created him, and she thought he was, and she knew he made a mistake, and she surrounded him with a cloud and threw him in the underworld, or threw him in the earth. Yeah, I'm not going to say that's not how we see it from the African traditional religion mindset of our version of Gnosticism, but the difference will be we just may not. All things have a place in nature. Even things in the underworld have a place. When people talk about the underworld is usually to play when you have planetary disasters. We talk about like stuff like Noah's floods, or when the planet's going through destruction. Where do you think you go? You go back in the underworld. We don't look at the underworld. That concept of hell, which I might talk about, may not. That was from the Europeans going and seeing indigenous peoples accessing what some people call the underworld, right, or the abyss, and they didn't like. And I'm not going to talk about that too much, so don't ask me, because there's already enough people who think black magic is cool. And I'm not saying African magic, I'm talking about black magic. Right? There's people who want to be tough and want to be like, they want to be powerful. So I ain't making no videos on black magic like that. But yes, the concept of even hell was kind of misunderstood when Europeans came into the dark continent of Africa and saw that. And they went back home, and then hell, Hades begun. Right? Not saying there's not some elements of that has truth in it, but it's not the way they say it. But again, I on some Hotep shit. It's not because the evil, just they just practicing. They just haven't been on Earth as long, so the styles of spirituality they're practicing is just younger. That's all. Ain't nothing deep about it, right? So this is a short video. I mean, it's 20 minutes, but this is Demiurge. I mean, some motherfuckers will talk about Demiurge in 45 minutes, but I don't think I have anything else to add in the topic. So Siris King. Till next time. Peace.